Yeah, no, I love running my podcast just like conversations, just like we're like at a having coffee, breakfast, or something like that, just to meet each other and stuff. You are now the third creator or slash entrepreneur that I've interviewed, and I really appreciate you coming on and sharing the space with me. Thank you so much. To everyone who is listening, or if you're watching, Camila, let us know who you are. Tell me who you are. I want to know everything about you because you have actually blown me away with a lot of the content that you've been putting out there recently. And that's why I wanted to do this episode with you and just learn from you.
Yeah, thank you.
You're
Such a
welcome.
delight to talk to you. So my name is Camila. Online, you'll see me as Maria Camila, but you can just call me Camila. And I'm a brand photographer and videographer and a strategist. So I help entrepreneurs fine tune their voice, showing up online. And then the format that I do it through is a photography and video that actually helps people sell. So anyway, that's what my focus is on, especially conscious entrepreneurship, helping them pull wisdom out from their lived experience so that when they market themselves, it doesn't feel businessy. It just feels like another life thing. And it's more natural for you to show up in that way instead of trying to measure up to a business standard, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And what actually is your background? Like, have you always been doing, branding and photography and stuff, or was that something you kind of you evolved into?
Yeah. So I've been a photographer forever.
Yeah.
For like over 15 years, I've been shooting photos and just the
Nice.
concept of capturing moments and making them timeless and just recognizing that even our most raw experiences are worthy of being seen and remembered and captured beautifully. And I've shot births, I have shot weddings, I have
Yeah.
shot so many random things throughout my journey. But it wasn't until 2022 that I was fine tuning what I wanted to do with my business, what I wanted to do with photography. I actually never really wanted to be a wedding photographer. I did it and I'm happy that I went through that experience, but I was really only doing it because I thought that was the only viable way of making money.
Mhm.
But I switched to being in brand once I actually went through my own branding process. And that's when I learned that brand is so much of my voice and the things I want to express from my lived experience, not what's trending, what's profitable, what is. And when I shifted that focus, I was like, wow, anybody can have a successful online business. Anybody can do this
Thank
if
you.
we just have the right principles
Mhm.
and like get rid of the noise of the shoulds. And I'm just like, I don't shoot models. I don't like so much of my industry is heavily focused on getting like a big brand deal or working for certain brands. And I
Or
did get to work with a few brands that reposted my work. And one of them was like Free People back in the day, but
Yeah.
nothing gives me the satisfaction of the regular person that shows up polished and it's their wisdom and lived experience that is being amplified. That's just so much more interesting and meaningful to the work that I do
Yeah.
than, it's nice, I don't know, a name on my portfolio that strokes my ego.
Yeah. No, I get that. And so I'm actually, I feel like that I was that person that was like, I just have to achieve. I have to like work with the big brand. I got to do all this. And I have my library of brands that I've worked with is pretty impressive, all the way from Sports Illustrated to who's like the very first person I worked with was Sweet Sweat back in the day when
Wow.
yeah, when what you would call it, when like all that like, oh, we're gonna put all this stuff on you and do the whole booty building thing. That's how I actually like blew up back in the day. And I was so burnt out back in the day because I was just like chasing trend after trend. And when that booty business, that I created blew up, I really fell into that world and it was so toxic. Like it's
Hmm.
crazy to me what you'll do, especially when you're younger in entrepreneurship for money.
Hell yeah.
Like you're willing to be like, yeah, sure. Like I'll charge you like $180 when I should be charging like thousands of dollars just because, well, I feel bad or I don't know my value. And what would you actually like tell your younger self when you first started photography? What would be the advice?
Oh my gosh. That reason why I started, that's been it the whole time.
Mhm.
It's not the accolades. It's not more extravagant than just capturing quality memories, because photos is something that gets better over time. Photos of yourself, even when you look back at images, anything that you've captured in the past, you learn so much about yourself the more time goes. So it appreciates in value. Yeah, I would say give yourself permission to be deep as hell as you want to
Yeah.
be through this work,
Yep.
instead of, because I used to feel fear of like, oh my God, I'm too spiritual. I'm too
Yep.
deep, or like this
Yep.
is just photos. And I'm like, you know what? No, girl. Like let yourself be so deep, and it has worked out. Okay.
Yeah, it clearly has been working. I love the fact that you said like, oh, like I don't want to be too deep because I was struggling with that. Actually, I've been struggling with that. I want to feel like since the moment I was like an early entrepreneur, I always took things a little bit deeper than the average person would, and they'd just be like, "Bro, it's not that serious." And I'm like, "But it is that deep. Like what? Like the reason why you do one thing is the reason why you do anything." And I don't think
Mm,
people really take a step back and analyze that, especially when, people like us who are entrepreneurs and brand builders, like everything begins with your why. Why why did you build your brand? Actually, let's even go back even further. Who inspired you to even start?
mhm. Such great questions that reveal so much about your values without me asking you what's your values. But just asking you that question of why is this inspiring you can reveal so much about the things that matter to you. And yeah, I agree with all that.
I think that what do you think is holding a lot of people back right now from starting a brand? Because that's essentially what I've done with Expand Your Capacity, my brand that I've just built over the past couple months. Just so you have some background information, the reason why I started this was because I shut down my gym business that I actually had, and that was
It was popping. It was so big. I
it
remember
was
I went. It was the talk of the town. I know what you're talking about.
yeah,
I
it was.
so thanks.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. It was an amazing experience and I loved it. And honestly, being an African American guy and half Hispanic guy who's come out here to Arizona, didn't know anybody at one point and built a brand in business, like I was proud of myself, but at the same time I had to be real. Like I did not do it for the right reason. And this is actually probably the first time I'm going to say this publicly on like a social media thing. The reason why I actually started my gym was because I actually had a falling out with a friend of mine from a previous business that I started with them. And I was fueled by well, fuck them. I'll show them. Like, I'm going to show everybody how great I am. And I was really getting it left and right at one point because I'm like, hey, like, I know I'm building a name for myself. I know that I've been showboating a little bit and that's going to come with it. But I ultimately did it because I got lost in the sauce. I got lost in the muddy. I got lost in the
Mm,
lifestyle out here in Scottsdale. And there was just all this anger and resentment that was in me spiritually that I just couldn't I didn't want to let go of because I was under the impression I got here because of that. And that was a
mm,
very hard thing to process once everything fell apart. And I'm not gonna like my ego, my soul, like everything took it, even down to my body. Like I stopped weightlifting actually up until like a couple weeks ago. I started
wow.
working on it. Yeah, I completely divorced from fitness. And I've had to rebuild my connection, one, with my soul. And that's like the very crux of what I do for Expand Your Capacity. When I work with, whether it's creators, business owners, and just like you, I say, why do you want to do this? What's the soul of your company? If you don't have a good soul, I'm telling you, in real life is going to fail. It's going to happen. You're going to reap what you sow.
Yeah, you'll get a nice little run that'll stroke your ego so good,
Yep. Hmm.
but that's not sustainable. That'll give you
Nope.
some yummy highs,
Hmm.
and
Hype
there's no
is not
denying about it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hype is not something you can sustain off of. And I thought that also just being a guy, I always like was under the thought process. And I think this is also like using my physicality as a professional athlete back in the day. I was like, well, I can just will myself through anything when really in business, it has nothing to do about willing yourself. It's all about systems, authenticity, and what problems you're solving.
Mm.
And if you
For your
make it about
yeah.
it really, it comes down to that. And I think that, how long have you you said 15 years is basically the span of your career.
For photography, yes. And then as far as like actual branding, like actually let me walk people through a process and build my process since like 2022.
Damn, so it's been a minute. So like so now that you know, like the base, it's the soul of your company. The next step to that is the physical component, like the doing. Like now that I know who I am, now I need to do it. What was the kickoff point where you're like, okay, screw it. Like I am doing this. I'm going all in. I'm quitting this. I'm stopping this. This is taking my attention.
Such a great question. It's such an initiation.
Yeah.
It started, so I started just learning so many principles about what makes a brand and like all the different facets of it, like truly
Mhm.
technicalities of what makes up a brand. And it was the start of 2023. And I always knew that marketing was a weak point for me. I had
Mhm.
so much insecurity. I just didn't know. I like understood the structure of building a brand, but the actual execution of it on the daily, I
Yeah.
knew I'm like, this is such a weak spot for me. I had so many mental limitations. I used to think that I'm too much, I'm too polarizing, people hate me. Like I
Yeah.
also I a little bit about my background. I was raised in Utah and in Salt Lake from like 2015 to like 2017, 18. I had momentum. That's how I started building my following. And I just had so many mental barriers of like, oh, people are just think I'm just such a failure because my engagement sucks. It's just baggage, truly. It was just noise.
Yeah.
But I had already invested so much into my branding and I was already committed that I was like, I need to figure this out. There's no going back. And I didn't even know much about mindset work, about nervous system regulation. I knew nothing. All I knew
Thank
was
you
that,
so much that you're talking about. Thank you so much.
yeah,
Keep going. Keep going. I love
I
this.
knew nothing about those important things that could make the ride a lot smoother. I just knew this needs to go. There's no plan B here. And at the start of 2023, I bought like some marketing course and I'm like, okay, let me just apply these principles. And one of the things that the marketing course said was you post every day. And I'm like, what? Posting every day, facing my fear every day,
Hmm.
facing my baggage every day. And I probably not. I know better now, but at the time, I just forced myself to commit to this. I forced myself to like, I'm gonna trigger people. Just like, even though people were inspired by me and they're like, oh, you're so confident inside, I'm like, they hate me. I'm suffering.
Yep.
But I
Yep.
forced myself to do that. And it started shifting my identity like 3, 4, 6 months in. It started becoming normal for me to get out there and express and build thought leadership. And
Yeah.
later on, I hired a business coach that's when I learned the skill of mindset.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, if I just change my thoughts about all these things, that made the journey a lot smoother. And these are principles that I practice to this day. But to answer your question of the doing is you just need to trust your ability to transform, even if you don't know what that's gonna look like. And this is unsexy, but like you persevere through the hard shit.
Is resilience. It really is. And I think that's why people ultimately don't jump into entrepreneurship or content creation or just doing things on their own without structure because they don't have let me just say what it is, the spiritual, mental, physical, intellectual, and creative fortitude to just ride out 99% of your days, which are bad days. And then that one day you're like, oh shit, I did it. You have to take so many punches to the gut, like
Mm.
spiritually and physically. Like you're just like, there's been so many days where, and thank God I have the wife that I have. She's literally my angel. There are days where I'm literally like looking at the ceiling and she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing. I have no fucking idea. And I don't think people realize that every entrepreneur at every single level has that moment where they're like, what the hell? Like, I don't know
Yeah.
what's the next step. And
Like someone give me the formula, please. Are
mhm,
you gonna
please,
give me? And even when I've asked coaches, well, what do you think you should do? And I'm like, there's answers in there, but I hear what you're saying with the patience that you need to have when you really just need to dig deep. And the answer sometimes doesn't come that same day, and just having patience that it'll come to you eventually.
yeah. I think the breakthrough that I had recently was that your solution is in your problem. And that if you have a problem getting on camera, well, guess what? You should probably be on camera. Well, I don't speak the best. Well, you should probably use a teleprompter and teach yourself how to speak better, because if you're not a good presenter, you're not going to be able to sell. If you can't sell, it's probably because you're a bad storyteller. Let's
Mm,
actually rewind to the storytelling.
mm.
How important is the art of storytelling in branding and business, period, from your perspective?
It's the core of everything. I actually saw this on some Instagram ad of masterclasses, but it is a man that said, if you don't have a story, you don't have a way to persuade
Mhm.
people. And storytelling is how you build trust with people, because if you want people to trust you with their money or with their essence or with their vulnerabilities or with whatever the hell, then you also need to show that you're a trustworthy person, also trust in them too and how you're showing up. And there's actually, I've been thinking a lot about this because there's a lot of business, especially marketing advice, that says that a lot of your content should be about addressing objections, problem solving. And
Which I
I,
think is great in the beginning.
yeah, and I think it's good if you're in a season of selling. Like, obviously, yes, that does make up a significant part of your chunk of your content, but also an equal part of your content is showing people that you're a human too, that we can connect on a human to human level to build that trust. And when we're able to have that trust, we're going to create our best work, whether that work is fitness, business, photography, videography, literally anything. Trust is like the foundation of, honestly, everything in business, I believe.
It truly is. And I think, you can position yourself as an authority in anything. And I don't think people realize that. Like when people say he's just a former gym owner and he does fitness and all that stuff. And I'm like, no, I'm a capacity coach. No, capacity expansion coach. And they're like, well, what does that mean? And I said, I've learned how to solve my problems and I'm here to solve yours, whether it's fitness, branding, marketing, business, investing, whatever it is. I'm here to help serve you. Now, that's how I solve problems. And I think that's what people forget. Like your brand, yes, it's your story, but also this is what I've learned and I'm packaging this problem into something and I'm solving it now for you. And you can never sell that without that human interaction and connection. I think that's another thing that we can actually talk about: authenticity and human connection. With the rise of AI,
Hmm.
you hear, I feel like you hear a lot of this fear mongering and stuff like, oh, there's going to be no photographers or artists. And I'm like, no, there's always going to be photography and art, because a machine can't make you understand why someone took that photo.
Yeah.
Can't make a robot can't make you have a memory of something that you're watching on screen and it's like, oh my god, that brought me back to my childhood. Like it's not there yet. Only humans can make each other emote. And
Yeah.
I think that people just forget, like at the end of the day, you are always going to have the need for human on human interaction. And I personally think the fear mongering has to stop. And how has the rise of AI and technology affected you and your business, or has it enhanced it in any way?
Yeah. Honestly, I feel so unbothered by it.
Mhm.
I just, if anything, it gives me an edge because I'm like, oh, great. My conversational ways of being are going to shine through. And I also
Mhm.
think that there's such a yearning for human connection, especially after the pandemic where we were all
Mhm.
separated and just
Yep.
reliant on technology and AI, that it's like, it's like saying that like live events are not valuable because we have social
Yeah.
media or like Facebook groups, right? And I think that it's really hard to replicate the human connection and like that raw.
It's the
Yeah.
vibration, like it's just an energy. Like I have a friend, he's a cinematographer. His name is Cody Block, and he's phenomenal. Great talent. He's currently traveling all over the world doing videography. And the reason why, when I look at every single picture he posts or any video content he posts, I literally get moved, because I remember before he left, he was like, dude, I have an opportunity to shoot literally in 7 different countries that I want to go to, and I don't have the money to travel right now. What do I do? And I said, you just figure it out. Like go, and then figure it out. Now he's just sprinting and running with it. And so like that story between me and him, now I'm so proud of him just watching him live his purpose and build his brand and expand what he's doing without fear. And I just have a firm belief that everyone who builds a personal brand in 2025 will achieve freedom. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree completely. Like you just have so much leverage to bring aligned opportunities with you being your authentic self. And as I'm thinking about that, that wasn't really allowed for like ever because
Uh,
you just had to, I mean, I talk about the concept of assimilating as a Latina, or like I know code switching, that's like a thing, but I think everyone to a degree, we've kind of had to assimilate to corporate and just to
Thank you.
get a check and just to survive and just to get by. But the way that things are changing now, what I was going to say with that too was our authenticity wasn't really asked of us. It sort of was in a job interview, but once you get the job, you're just like another
You're a cog in the machine. That's it.
yeah, to help
Yeah.
a corporation run or whatever. And I think that now we've just shifted to like, we've never really been asked to be authentic. And I know to some people, it feels like a lot like, oh, I don't want to share my whole life online, but it's, I just think it's a new way of being, of extracting the wisdom from your lived experience now. But the people that are catching on, I mean, to agree with what you're saying, I feel like I am the most aligned and authentic, sturdy, non-bullshit version of myself since starting
It's
this
com-
journey of personal
it,
branding. And
it shows in your all your media. That's why I was like, I have to talk to this person right now.
thank you. And it's really pushed me to be so aligned, but I feel so good because now I'm talking to you. Like this is so cool.
And I think that's what another thing, like I keep telling people, they're like, why'd you start your own podcast? And I'm like, because I am actively learning how to be a better version of what I'm doing. Because if I can talk to what other time in history could you say, hey, I don't know this person, but they vibe with me and I see them for who they are. I want to talk to that person and let's start exchanging stories, exchanging information, repurpose that and provide value for our entire audience. Like that's insane. I have a
Mhm.
degree in YouTube University. I will watch
I love it.
YouTube over and over and over again because there's so much information out there from top people or even like people who are more modest and they're like, look, like I'm low key and this is why. And I'm like, why wouldn't you want to just connect and expand who you are by seeing different perspectives? And you mentioned something about assimilating and let's take a deep dive now
Oh my God, let's
because
go. Let's go down this slide. It's
let's
steep.
do it. I I grew up as a black Hispanic man and well, little boy, not man, but little boy in Philadelphia during the 90s, and that was an experience because my mom's from Puerto Rico, my dad he's black guy from Philadelphia, his family's from the South. We experienced a lot of racism from my own people, which was crazy
Mhm.
for me to experience at such a young age. And then
Your
when
Latino side or your
no,
side?
my black side, extreme racism towards my mom. Whereas the Puerto
So
Ricans that I grew yeah, and it was like the Puerto Rican side of my family basically, you know, of course took me in and I assimilated to that culture. But on the same token of that, like my mom became damn near almost a CEO, high up exec at Merrill Lynch, one of the first Latinas to ever do it. My
wow.
mom is a fucking badass. She's amazing. But she grew fearful being in that corporate environment because she saw the racism. She saw the nepotism. She saw this crazy stuff. So she's telling me, like, you need to speak a certain way. You need to behave a certain way. You
Mm.
need to just fall in line. And I understand why she did that. And I love my mom and I don't fault her for it because that was traumatic for her seeing all that day in, day out, all these people saying racist things, looking at people's names on resumes saying, oh, this is too black. No.
Mm.
And so hearing that stuff, I understand why my mom didn't teach us Spanish. I understand why my mom was like, you need to behave a certain way and do this and do that. But at 35 years old right now,
Mm.
I've officially said, and I made a very controversial LinkedIn post and said, I will never work a job ever again. And I basically went in on corporate America because I'm like, corporations are nothing more than groups of, well, basically a community of people who have an idea. And if you don't agree with that idea, you're done.
You're
You're out.
outie. Oh, yeah.
And once I really understood that, and also for me, the fact that you have to apply, I talked to my aunt. She's like, I applied for 100 jobs this year. And I was like, why? Someone of your like caliber who's been in all these top positions, why are you fighting for the same job across America when you can literally create your own? She's like, I don't have the experience and knowledge. I go, yes, you do. What? You don't know how to package it into an offer. That's the
Yes.
crazy thing. And that's
Oh
what
my gosh.
I'm helping all these people. Are you familiar with Myron Golden at all?
No. Tell me more.
You would love this guy. So he does business with biblical teachings. And he even tells people, he's like, I'm not telling you to be religious. I'm not telling you to, read the Bible, but I'm teaching you spiritual things to help you. And so what he says is, whenever you're giving an offer, make it a God-sized offer, because your problems are way too damn small to be stressing about compared to God, the universe, whatever you want to call it. So
Mm.
if someone has a God-sized problem in their life, for example, I had this one client, she was like, I have negative $1,000 in my bank account and I don't know what to do. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you do for a living? And she was like, well, I help she basically helps deals that are falling apart in real estate go through. And I
Wow.
said, well, are you talking about that on social media? She goes, no. And I was like,
Mm.
there's your answer.
Yeah,
Start
there you
getting
go.
people interested. And so I said, don't do this about money. Help people in your position solve problems. And
I
now
don't matter of fact, yeah.
she has her own brand now. Now she has 5 clients that she's coaching to basically how to not like botch their deals. And they're all high paying clients. She goes, Ian, I now know I will never have negative anything in my bank account ever again. I just don't think people understand the power that they have. And what do you see within your clients when you're shooting them that you're like, actually, let me rephrase that. How do you get the real, raw, authentic person out when you're working with them?
Yeah. I loved everything you shared, by the way. I was like, yeah, tell them anybody can do it. To answer your question of how I get authenticity out of people, or at least the truth, is I like to believe I'm giving this feedback, but I think I'm good at asking questions. I saw somewhere too that like the quality of your life is also based on the quality of your questions, and I really take that to heart. So I walk people through a strategy process, which I want to be clear that a strategy process is different than a coaching process. Coaching can
Mm,
have more of like different outcomes, rather a strategy is like I literally have a framework of how I walk people through. But a lot of
mhm.
it is by quality of the questions. And I think I mentioned to you earlier that I could ask you, what are your values? And you could be like, okay, authenticity
Yeah.
at work. And or I could be ask you what pisses you off about the world. And then
Mhm.
anything that has a strong emotion behind it, whether it's something that really lights you up, something that or that annoys you, there's always some reasoning, some lived life experience underneath all of that. And that helps shape up a point of view. And also related to the industry. So that's how
Mm,
things start shaping up. And then once we start shaping up, just understanding people's perspectives of the world, then that's what starts shaping up the actual brand shoe. And in regards to the day of the shoe, I'm all about just having a good vibe.
yeah.
I'm not a super structured person. I do having a little bit of structure, but I'm mostly focused on my energy being a vessel that clients can confide in to be themselves.
Mhm.
And you can have a really good shoot with like 2 cute outfits as long as the energy is good, music's good. That's the biggest focus in helping people unwind and show up candidly. And then, anyways, I would say those are the principles
Yeah.
of helping people. show up authentically.
What does your process look like? Like what's the quality of like I want to say not care, but like what's your process when like you're editing or when you're in those quiet moments with, all the things that you took at a shoot? I know for me personally, when I, edit content for certain people and creators, there's a process that I do to it. Like I have to sit in the same place, my little desk. Like I need to have the windows open. I need to have certain music playing. Like how do you get your creative juices flowing?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Playlist, a solid podcast is important. And I would say I sit a lot at my desk, probably because this is where I can edit video work versus my laptop. But it's just, I'm very intentional about making my space look beautiful. And I wish I had a better answer for you, but it's really just
No, that's
about
okay.
dropping into the vibes. And actually,
Yeah.
as I say that, I'm remembering something that I do is I really, especially when I'm editing video work, I really like to, okay, context. When I edit photos, I can listen to a podcast and I can listen to music and still
Hmm.
edit the photos. But when I'm editing video, you have to be so present because you can't have
Hmm.
music in the background.
Yep.
So I've learned that in order for me to create work, especially video work that's going to touch people's hearts and clients aren't going to cringe away from, and it's
Hmm.
actually something quality, it
Yep.
requires me to be extremely present and extremely emotional. Like my
Hmm.
emotional availability really needs to
Yeah.
go there. And it's like, am I being vulnerable? Like, am I allowing the vulnerability to really shine here? And actually, now that's probably how best I can answer it.
Let me go into like the emotional capacity component of like what I do with expand your capacity. And emotional capacity is basically, I mean, as you know, how much you're basically able to handle with your nervous system, the things that are going on in your head, how you're managing stress. How do you manage your stress? Like, do you do certain practices? Do you have like a routine that you have to do? Like, what does that look like as an entrepreneur?
I love that question. I wish more people talked about nervous system regulation.
Uh-huh.
It's the core of managing all the ups and downs of this lifestyle. But a lot of what I do is I do a ton of journaling, whether it's writing down my thoughts and lots of brain dumps. Like I take the unintentional thoughts that I'm having I take it extremely seriously
Yeah,
to write it all down. I even have a Google Doc that's literally called Thoughts,
I love that.
and it's where I brain dump everything. And I don't try to be polished with it. I learned the practice of mindset of truly getting clear with what are the stories that I'm unintentionally telling myself that I don't even know that they're pretty loud in my head. So
Mm.
I'm freakishly obsessed with journaling, and that's a practice I started implementing. And then also journaling more of practicing what is the identity of the person that has this result and following that intentionally. And then I've been getting more into just getting more somatic work. And
Yeah,
this is more where I'm
huge
getting,
proponent for that.
yeah, getting more in touch with sensations. And sensations don't have a story. They're more like naming the emotion of, okay, I may
Yes.
feeling stress. And stress feels like a red aura on my left side. Okay, I see that. I see that stress. And honestly, just the practice of naming the emotion, giving it a sound, like observing the sensation, that allows me to get back into the present moment and not spiral into a full on panic attack when I feel intense emotions in my body of
Yep.
whatever I get triggered by that day.
I'm a firm believer that your emotions, you do need to create like names for them or characters. Like what's that Disney movie? Inside Out. And people think it's weird, but I'm like, no, because now you're able to identify. When I was going through probably the toughest time when I had the gym, part of the reason why I closed it is because the stress, the nervous system, early days, just being stupid in my free time. Like I was just exhausted. My nervous system was shot. And I thought I actually was having a heart attack one day in the gym. And I went to the ER and everything. And they were like, no, dude, you had an anxiety attack. And I was like, what am I anxious about? They're like, well, let's look at your life. Let's take a look at it and unpack it. And I've actually created a group called the Resilience Tour, where we actually work with entrepreneurs and creators specifically to help them not burn out and become more resilient. And that's how serious I am about the nervous system. And I don't I don't think people who work 9 to 5s understand, like, yes, they go through stress, but knowing you have nothing underneath you sometimes as an entrepreneur, or saying, hey, I've said all this stuff out to the world and I'm trying to portray something and things are slowly starting to fall apart. Like, what do I do? That's a very hard place to be in. But
Yeah.
I think every entrepreneur needs to take accountability for their mental and spiritual health first, period, before anything.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah, I totally agree. I actually had a question for you because before we dive in, because you're a man and so much of self-development in a man's world is like fuck feelings, get the emotions out of it, get it done, period. That's it. And I'm actually really fascinated even by you opening up this line of work because with women, it's so familiar for us to be vulnerable and emotional, and that's such a normalcy. But for a man to open this up of actually knowing, recognizing your emotions is how you become a top performer in whatever you're doing.
100%. And I think, I feel like a lot of men, they go down this route of, oh, I'm going to follow stoicism and be like these Greek people I never met, or they'll follow like these red pill guys, like the Andrew Tates and stuff. And like, no disrespect to Andrew Tate, but like, I'm not following his advice. Like, I'm just not. I respect what he's built for himself, but no. As it comes to like our world leaders and presidents, I personally just believe that no human being is going to lead me better than me. That's what I believe. But what I really hold dear to my heart is just this. I've always had this desire to just grow. And I realized that at a point in my journey, I was just emotionally stunted and spiritually stunted. And I realized that, dude, there is a certain level that you're not going to be able to achieve if you do not mature this, like, now. And now with a daughter coming into the world,
Mm.
it's like I want to embody what I want her to love and respect, and one day become a bride to. I want her to know what a strong male looks like, because I grew up without, my dad in my life for majority of the time, and having surrogate fathers in my family, step up and stuff. But that left a very big hole in my heart. And I think a lot of men don't want to go back to their childhood and really address the things that are there. Because like I said before, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And how you do things right now are either because there's something in your past that you wanted to fix, or there's something in your past that hurt so much that you're like, screw it, I don't want to fix it. Or you're just completely ignorant to it.
Overcompensate and overcompensate. And
Mhm.
yeah, thanks for sharing
I,
that. That's
of course.
powerful, especially just knowing that you have like a daughter coming in. I'm sure that is like, oh, wow, things are way more serious now.
It was very, honestly, she's not even here yet, and she's already brought out the best side of me. And I personally have told all my close guy friends, I'm like, look, like in my friendship group, I'm one of the first guys to get married. I've been married now, it'll be going on 3 years soon. Me and my wife, we've been together a total of 5, if just dating and marriage combined.
Amazing.
Having our first child together, like had a thriving business together. Like on paper, like I personally wasn't supposed to succeed out here. And I think what I just tell all these guys, I'm like, look, man, like the most honorable thing you can do as a man is to be of service, whether it's to your wife, your children, to humanity, to society. Like, choose to serve someone more than yourself. And I
Hmm.
understand why many men are self-serving. Like, I totally get it. And I talk to a lot of guys out there in the world now, a lot of women too. They're like, dude, the dating world sucks. Like, what is going on? And I'm like, I get it, but I wouldn't have had my marriage if I didn't begin working on myself.
Yeah.
And I just think if people just focus, especially entrepreneurs, sometimes you need to break up with your business a little bit and really focus
Mm.
on what's important.
Hell
What do you
yeah.
think?
This is
What do you
too
think
much of
about that?
something. Everything. Everything. I'm like, yeah. I was gonna say too, just even in regards to the dating world, the dating world sucks if you're not attuned. If you're not present and if you're like defensive and you have your guard up, yeah, it's gonna suck really bad. But I don't think it sucks when you are willing to live with an open heart. And by the way, to answer your question earlier of even what I do to regulate is just practice being present and not running
Yeah.
away from chaos. I even recognize, even within myself, as a woman who we feel our emotions all the time, but there's even so many emotions like sadness and fear and panic that I haven't allowed myself to feel.
Yeah.
Even when I think that, oh, I already felt that, I already journaled about that. I'm working with a somatic coach, and even when we go through a process, I won't be just like, I'm a little sad. I'm like, oh, like
Yeah.
really going through it. And I still hear judgment even within myself of like, wow, you're crying so hard. Like, wow, you're really damaged.
Really?
And yeah, and I've just had to catch myself and it's like, no, your ability to go there with your
Mhm.
ugly crying, with
Mhm.
your panic, wailing, like your ability to go there is what gets you to that happy, confident, whatever self that can be resilient. But
Mhm.
I learned that about myself. I'm like, wow, you're not allowing yourself to go there even when it's dark.
Think I think even our culture, you're Colombian descent,
Mhm.
right? Yep.
Yeah.
I think that I don't. I think one of my cousins is Colombian. I don't really understand the Colombian culture so much, but I know that definitely in the Puerto Rican and Latin and Black culture, like showing emotions, especially growing up when we were younger, was not like thank God I had the mom that I had that was just like, no, like you can cry. Like even my uncles, who some of them are just like whole dudes, and they were like, no, dude, like it's okay to cry. And it's crazy the expectation, especially like as a Black man in America, like the crazy things that people think like I'm supposed to be like my entire life. Oh, you talk white, or oh, you're not Black enough for this, or you're not Spanish enough for that. And I'm just like, bro, do you know how exhausting it is sometimes? And I do hear that sometimes when I'm making my stuff, like, damn, like, are my people going to resonate with this? Am I betraying
Mhm.
them because I think differently? Am I like
Mhm.
too whitewashed? And like, but at the end of the day, I'm like, look, all my experiences have shaped me regardless of skin color. Like I see myself as I am, and I
Yeah.
believe in God. I see myself now how he sees me. And so I've really just pushed out a lot of the noise and the expectations that whether it's my family, friends, people on social media have had for me. I'm just like, dude, like I don't, I officially do not care not only what you think about me, but how you think I should be doing things. I don't
Yeah.
give a fuck.
That's such a
How do you
powerful
deal with that?
I just want to commend you for that because that's a very powerful place to be as a man that I think hot take, but I think that when you're not a healed man, you may look at this as like, oh yeah, whatever. That's like that's not for me. And it's like, oh, if you're on the healing journey, you will get there eventually of
Well,
a being like
yeah,
a grounded person and not and recognize that your masculinity is not going to be taken away or even like you're
I feel like you don't reach true masculinity until you've been completely broken.
mm,
I
yeah.
truly, because Batman didn't become Batman until he saw his parents get murdered. Spider-Man didn't become Spider-Man until he lost one of his family members. Like, you have to go through immense heartache as a man and rebuild yourself up. Like that's why we love champions. That's why we love athletes and all this stuff, because we're seeing these dudes day in, day out, win, fail, win, fail, win, fail. And I think that men are too prideful sometimes to just let yourself break. And if there's anything I've learned, like God broke me this past year, whether anyone believes in you, whether you believe in God or not, like something broke me. But now that I've been putting myself together, doing the breath work, eating better, healing, letting things go,
Mhm.
apologizing. I've even had my first podcast coach was with my guy John Bowie. He created an entire program to teach people how to properly apologize to other people and themselves.
Wow.
I think that men, I know a lot of men will agree with me. A lot of men
Mhm.
are operating out of shame right now, and they don't know how to let it go because they feel like that's the thing. Like I said before, it's the thing that's gotten them through.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, bro, you have to let that go. Has there been anything like that in your life as an entrepreneur that you've had to go through where you're like, dude, I'm in the dark night of the soul and I don't know how to get out? Have you been there?
Last week got out.
Welcome back.
Anyway, thank you. Hell yeah. Yes, as of recent events, I mean, I think it comes in waves. I think whenever I'm misaligned or whenever I lose my voice and I'm following someone else's template,
Uh-huh.
that's when I get lost in the sauce. And then I reach a level of burnout, obviously, because that's not sustainable going off of somebody else's script. But hell yeah, I definitely have been through, gosh, even this month, I feel like I'm telling the universe, like, show me that it is safe to trust myself, that my intuitive way of being, that me trusting this way of being, please. And it has honestly tested me where like the whole month had gone by and I'm just like, things aligning in this and that way, but yet I'm getting glimmers of hope. And now towards the end of the month, actually, I'm getting so much hope, but it's been so much faith and so much perseverance. But it's not always like that. It's only like that when I'm following somebody else's script. And then I'll
Mhm.
be on a roll if I'm just disciplined with listening to that, to just what's authentic to me, what feels safe to me, and doing that.
Before
So
we wind down, what do you think is the most valuable nugget that you can give someone right now who is looking at that camera that's sitting there that's been collecting dust and they know that's what they want to do, but they haven't done it? What would you tell that person?
hire me or hire you. I mean it though. There's help available. We're not supposed to figure everything out by ourselves. That's why there's help available. I also say that because I used to not believe in coaching or anything. And ever since I got my first coach, I'm like, oh wow, I'm coaching for everything now. So definitely
Definitely.
get help. That's one. But if people were to do it on their own, is share wisdom from your lived experience. Like that's the most valuable thing. Like if you're sharing stuff that people can Google, that's boring. We don't want to hear it. Like it's already on Google. It's already existed. Share that thing that comes from your findings. And I think you talked about it earlier, like solved for this in this way through my lived experience with how I am. I'm going to share it with you. Anybody can take that framework of how you manage to learn to apologize as a man.
Yep.
Amazing.
Like that's yep. I was gonna say, I'm like, that's crazy how like that's what I mean. Like you can literally create anything. And I don't think people realize like you were made to make. And anyone that has been, I have paid thousands of dollars to get in front of certain people to hear things that I've already known.
Mm-hmm.
That's a crazy thing. But what I also learned from that is that accessibility to knowledge and wisdom that I don't hold yet will make me make money faster.
Yeah, it fast tracks you to success. Absolutely. And yeah, I agree with that
I think
wholeheartedly.
community too is something that's very important. And as we wind down the podcast, I'm actually creating a community for creators and entrepreneurs. It's called the Expansion Hub. It's a platform that I'm gonna actually release probably next week. I've been going back and forth about it, and I just want to give people who want to be inspiring and want to change their life and expand their capacity and really, take that leap of faith. I'm going to make this high level coaching. My coaching is $5,000 a month, but I'm bringing this all the way down to $90 because I
Love
want people to know that if you make this little investment, you are going to be surrounded with people like me, you, top creators who are just like, look, you are no different than any of us. The only difference is that we're doing the thing and you're concerned about being the thing.
Yes, the commitment to doing is how, gosh, I wholeheartedly agree with that. I will say that I've gotten better and I think better. I come up with better concepts just by my commitment to showing up every day, writing every day, and just being so committed to clarifying what is being brewing in me and not ignoring it. I was like, oh yeah, I'll do that next week. It's like, actually, no, let's map this out now and trusting those instincts of inspiration I'm getting.
I'm always on. It's funny because I'm always blueprinting and planning and talking to my chat GPT, and my wife is always like, "Oh, are you cheating on me with Cortana?" She calls her some like crazy, and I'm like, "No, I'm not. I'm trying to like, see what my roadmap is. That's it." But as we wind down, where can everyone find you? How can people work with you? Plug yourself in.
Thank you. So I'm on Instagram at Camila. It'll be CAMILLA_CCT. That's my main hub. That's where I am at the most. I have a podcast too. It's all about personal branding, allowing yourself to be seen. It's called Speak Your Truth and Look Good Doing It. Yeah, you can work with me. I travel. And you can work with me if you're looking for any photography and video for any rebrands you're going through, or even if you're new to social media and you're wanting help with what to say and actually have some assets to show up polished right away online that I can help you with. And then I also have this offer that's called the Reels Bank, which it's just a 3-month video retainer package designed to be small and spaced. That way people can get more comfortable talking to the camera. Because just because you feel anxiety when you talk to the camera doesn't mean that you got to be perfect on day one. So that's why I spaced it out over 3 months. And yeah, that's actually a better investment than
That's a
getting a
great
website.
offer right there. Yeah, fact. I saw you say that. You're like, don't get a website. And I'm like, now that I'm in the space that I'm in, I'm like, a website's just so damn tedious. I would rather do something else. And so,
Yeah.
honestly, just being a good communicator. And honestly, I love newsletters. And that's something I want you guys, anyone listening to this or watching this, subscribe to my newsletter on Substack. I am going in depth and I love writing and journaling and chronicling my life and just giving you guys actionable strategies so you can all grow. But with that being said, we're going to wrap up here. Thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast today. I truly appreciate you and I look forward to growing with you, my friend.
Yeah, likewise. This was so great. Thank you.
Of course. See you guys later. Peace.
Mm.